Welcome to Transform Today and Do It Again Tomorrow. It's a podcast devoted to getting you unstuck, taking your life off autopilot, and having more fun just by being your authentic self. Today's episode is episode number 1, Self-Awareness. Who's driving the bus? My name is Rebecca Rine, and as a certified life coach and professional writer, I help people just like you transform their lives to find their purpose, potential, and fulfillment by digging in deep to find the answers that they realized they were already there the whole time. So today starts an 8-part series I've created that's going to help you experience what life coaching is, and we'll teach you good ways to move your life forward, to find more joy and fulfillment, no matter what your situation is. Now, life coaching, people often think like it's people who are perfect and, I'm going to tell you what to do. No, life coaching is meeting you where you are, having deep conversations, and realizing life is really hard, right? Nobody has an easy path all the time. So life coaching is really about finding joy exactly where you are, trying to find this balance of, I know life is chaotic, but how can I grow and be the best version of myself, no matter what the situation? So each week in this podcast series, I'm going to give you one step in the process and give you an assignment to work on for that full week. And I do recommend not skipping ahead and really sitting with the knowledge and putting it to work for a week before listening to the next step. The whole idea is to just take this new knowledge, let it sink in, see what comes to you throughout the week, and then you're ready to tackle the next step in the podcast series. It's going to be awesome, I promise. And life coaching, it's kind of not a new thing, but it's getting to be more aware around the world. I want it to become as normalized as working out and eating vegetables. Here in Dayton, Ohio, and all around the world is my goal, is to really just people to embrace it and not think it's this crazy woo-woo kind of thing that only hippies do. It's a practice that is really rooted in action to change your life. Whereas therapy, you might go to a therapist to really examine past trauma or just painful things that happened in your past. That's a therapist. Life coaches, again, it's just focused on the present moment, and then it gives you ideas about how to move better in your life, how to become the person you want to be. So, but to get to that action, we first do have to do the hard work of understanding who we are, right? But that sounds horrible. No one really wants to do that work. Nobody ever says, I can't wait to hunker down to an afternoon of self-discovery and really figuring out who I am, right? No one wants to do that. But I'm telling you, if you want to have a better life, you have to first figure out who you are, and that is self-awareness. So today's first step in the podcast series, and in all the life coaching sessions I have with clients, the first step is always self-awareness. And just another way to think about self-awareness is just knowing who we are in our soul and our subconscious minds, and it's really something we need to devote time to so we can live authentically. And again, that word authentically kind of has a bad rap. People say, I just want to be authentic. I want to be myself. But really, it's super important. You have to be yourself, right? You have this one life. So knowing who you are authentically really helps us identify any issues we're having instead of just putting up with them and living with them. Years go by and we suddenly get used to these roadblocks, right? Without putting up a fight or realizing that they're there. They just become the norm. And again, it can feel really woo-woo to talk about self-awareness, but I'm here to tell you, I'm a very direct coach. I speak very clearly to clients. I'm real. I remind them, hey, I am not perfect. I've had so many experiences in my life that have just helped me to really challenge myself and want more out of my life. I'm not a perfect leader who's soft-spoken and whispery. No, I'm hey, have you thought of this? I'm hearing this from you. Maybe we can try this. So I'm very real, and I don't take the woo-woo whispery approach. So that's how I attack self-awareness as well. So as we go through this series, I want you to use these tools in a way that feels comfortable to you. Again, if you don't like someone who's whispering and sweet and a meditation yogi master that's great. You don't have to change who you are. A good example of this is I meditate. I started to meditate about 8 years ago. And I really got grossed out by all the apps that are out there and these guided meditations that tell you to breathe and find your inner peace. I'm like, you're driving me crazy right now by telling me to find my inner peace. I don't like when people whisper in my ear. That's not my flavor of relaxation. So I encourage you, as you move through this series, find what makes you comfortable. Do whatever you need to do to make these tools your own. These tools are not just for people in California who are on the beach and eating sushi. No, these tools are they're really powerful self-help tools. There's science behind every single tool I'm going to tell you about. It's not just touchy-feely, sounds pretty good. No, there's science behind that. If you do these things, you will find more contentment. You will find ways to make your life kind of turn into color rather than just gray. So stick with me and we'll get you a little more color in your life. So a good starting point to accomplish this self-awareness, first thing you're going to ask yourself, where do I feel off? So what does this off mean to you? Off is typically kind of like your gut telling you, this doesn't sit right with me. I'm not really happy in this situation. And typically you know what this is. You don't have to think too hard about it. It comes to the surface really quickly. Ask yourself that right now. Where do I feel off? I bet you have an answer. I bet you don't want to hear that answer because that's not fun, right? No one wants to know how we're off. But unlocking that door, opening that door is the first step towards becoming self-aware and tuning in to what's going on. And we do feel that answer kind of whisper to us throughout the day, right? Oh, that feels off. Or I don't know if you guys ever have this, but I wake up in the middle of the night and I immediately think of that whatever that thing might be in that season of my life, that thing that feels off. So it is always right there waiting for you. Here's some examples I wrote down that are pretty common from people I hear. I need to lose some weight, or I really want to go back to college, or I wish I had someone to share my life with, right? These are just these kind of nagging thoughts that are super heavy, but we just get used to them. We push them away. Sometimes having this feeling of off can translate into feeling overwhelmed, or the opposite, underwhelmed, like life is just, like I said, gray, lukewarm. You feel unfulfilled, or you feel super stressed out, beyond the normal measures of stress. It's almost like life has a control over you and you're the passenger, you're just there for the ride. And a big thing about being an adult, hopefully it's not just me, you guys, hopefully you agree, but we tend to be on autopilot, right? We just start to go through the motions. We do the thing, we make the meatloaf, we make the sandwiches for the kids, we go to work, pay the bills. It's autopilot. And we forget to step off and take a look at our lives. An analogy I used recently, I did a free workshop here at a Dayton public library, and 6 women showed up to it. And I gave them this analogy, and they were like, whoa, that makes total sense. So I'm going to share it with you today. But the things we put up with or we ignore in our lives, they become like a backpack that we willingly put on every morning without even thinking about it. We get used to the weight in the backpack. But being aware of what the contents of the backpack are and what they're doing to you, that means taking a moment to take off the backpack, opening it up and seeing what's inside. Rather than just blindly putting it on, okay, another day I'll put this thing on. You take it off and you're like, whew, dang, I didn't know I was carrying that. And what's in here anyway? I didn't even look at this. I haven't looked at it in years. So think of that. When you're stuck, you feel off, it's just something you've gotten used to. So it's time to take off the backpack and check out what's inside. Like I said, I'm a professional writer, so I love a good analogy and a good visual. This visual tends to work well with clients I've had. So we're on these adulting conveyor belts, right? These conveyor belts are moving and moving and moving. We get stuck in routines and rhythms, and we just can't find better ways to live until we step off of that adulting conveyor belt. You step off of it. You're not swept away by it anymore. You take a step off, you step aside with your life coach, and together you look objectively at your life. It's going by you. You're like, oh, that's I'm doing that thing again. Okay, yes, I'm identifying that pattern. Okay, there's my low self-esteem. Yes, okay, there's my fear. You can see it when you're not submerged in it or swallowed up by it. So stepping off that adulting conveyor belt is what life coaching does, and that helps you become self-aware by looking at your life objectively. You're not like scolding yourself for all the things. You're just looking like, oh yeah, I kind of do that a lot. Okay, helpful information. Sometimes we have really good intentions and dreams that we just can't push ourselves to work on, right? We can maybe set goals and we never follow through on them. This could be the goal doesn't feel like it's yours, but you put it in place to distract you from something bigger, right? Sometimes that happens. For example, maybe for years you think, oh, my goal is to climb the corporate ladder in an office job. But if you sit with it long enough, you might realize that was never really your goal, but a goal you just took on to impress others. And that's not always going to be the case, but sometimes if you sit with things, you realize, man, at the root of this is really me following a dream I never really wanted, or going after a goal that I kind of don't care about. So being self-aware is like figuring out, what the heck do I care about, and am I being real about it? And again, those questions are not just for, people typically think, oh, women are only the people who do this kind of work. No, men, I don't care where you are in your life. Isn't it great to know who you are and what you want? You don't have to be in a yoga position with, incense. You could be drinking a beer at a bar and talking with your buddies, hey, so what do you want from your life? That's good, right? We have this one life, like, let's dig into it. Another thing that's really important to think about, it's very common, we can start to feel off when other people and past experiences get in our heads, right? People get in our heads. We think, they think this, and now I'm this. You kind of put yourself into a box and label yourself as something that you're really not, but you're just believing the false voices in your head. And we get stuck in this holding pattern and low self-confidence. So all these ways that we get stuck, we think about it, but our instinct is to numb ourselves, right? Whenever you feel a feeling of, oh, it feels off, that feels weird, you watch TV, you scroll on your phone, you shop, you drink, you eat, you do anything to numb the feeling and feel better, right? That's totally normal human instinct. To run away, make that bad feeling go away, right? But sorry, self-awareness calls us to do the hard work of looking those feelings in the eye and like really understanding the answers and listening quietly for who's in there, what's going on. And it is definitely hard work. Think of this. What's more inviting? Would you rather sit with a glass of wine and watch your favorite show? Or would you rather sit down in silence, light a candle, and ask yourself, why am I so sad? Why am I stuck? Why is my life feeling so off? That's like going to be a harder night, right? Than sitting down with a glass of wine watching your favorite show. But I promise you, the result, the fruit of that labor, it's going to be a better night for you. Not every night, just once in a while. And to that point, being self-aware does not mean we have to go down a dark road and just dwell on anything and everything that comes up. You don't have to suddenly be a Debbie Downer, like, oh God, everything's so painful. No, heck no, we don't want that. But we do have to know who is driving the bus, okay? You are the bus. Your brain is the bus. Your gut, your soul, your heart, whole package, that's the bus. But who is driving the bus? Sometimes the person driving the bus is the person who's been hurt or insecure from the past, right? Which is all of us. We all have something because life is life. It's always challenging. So we have to be careful not to let that person always drive the bus. So ask yourself this, what's my pain point? What's that one thing that if someone can mention it, it's brought to the surface immediately and you like, oh gosh, yeah, I don't want to think about that. So this pain point is something that's happened that makes you stuck in that emotion, kind of like just in a holding pattern, stuck in that emotion. I can share mine with you so you can get an example of what I'm talking about here. Mine is when I was a teenager. I was 13 years old and I'm 48 now. So 13 was a long time ago. I'm definitely over this, but it can come up in a heartbeat if someone mentions it. I had major reconstructive hip surgery. I was on a body cast for 8 weeks. Yeah, 8 weeks. I had to learn to walk for a year on crutches, physical therapy, had another surgery because the first one didn't go quite as planned. Totally traumatic. People would stare at me and laugh and make jokes like, hey, cripple, hey, old lady, like pretty traumatizing. Again, I'm over that, but it definitely, that scared, annoyed, self-conscious kid can creep up real quick in a heartbeat. If I'm in a new situation, I'm afraid, I'm tired. That little girl, she comes and drives the bus real quick. Like if I'm definitely like in a new situation, if I walk into a room, I'm always like, I'm definitely different from everyone. Everyone's better than me. I don't always think that, but that can definitely sneak up if I'm feeling super, super self-conscious. So think about what your pain point is. What is that deep thing that's kind of like your inner child that can sneak up real quick? That's a good key to figuring out who you are and being self-aware. And these things are understandable. I'm not saying, ignore your emotions or always simmer in your emotions. No, the idea is just to understand them. Like you should be aware of what's going on. And the goal is not to ignore it, but just to understand it and sit with it. Acknowledge it. And here's the key. Don't let the broken parts of you always drive the bus. If you get one thing out of this podcast, this episode 1, remember that. Do not let the broken part of you always drive the bus. He or she can, that's fine. Sometimes it's okay. It's going to happen. Life happens. Let it out. But if the most broken, most beaten down, most hurt part of you is the part that is the loudest and is driving your thoughts and your actions and just your everyday routines, you're going to see a life that's not as happy as it could be. So if we invest in knowing who's driving the bus and churning out thoughts, that can be so helpful to not just blindly follow it without challenging it. Again, you step off the conveyor belt and you say, aha, I see that I keep doing that. I wonder why. And you get curious about it with your life coach. Hopefully that would be me. Another way to uncover where you feel stuck is to ask yourself, what does my inner child still crave? Now, again, if you're not a person who loves to talk about emotion, you're not touchy-feely, I get it. That can make you laugh. Like, I don't know, my inner child still craves. But it's such a valid question. What brought us joy as kids, it's still totally important. And again, we can't be like a Pollyanna about it and say, okay, great. I love to play outside, so I'm going to go play outside all day, eat some fruit roll-ups, play with my Care Bears. I'm going to do that all day long. I'm not saying be unrealistic about it. I'm saying remember those small joys because it's pretty important to have joy as an adult. We sometimes think like, I'm pretty miserable, but that's what adult life is like, right? I'm miserable, doing it right. No way. I refuse to believe that. You have to have joy. You have to have humor. You have to have fun. You have to tap into some of the things you loved as a kid because I know that you still love them. So that's another good aspect to figure out how are you feeling stuck or how are you feeling off. And again, once you start to pinpoint, yeah, I am kind of feeling stuck, I'm kind of feeling off, you got to be more specific about it to figure out what's next, right? So a way to do that, zoom in a little bit closer and look at the different categories of your life. Some examples of that might be relationships. That might mean romantic, friends, family members, relationships. Your finances, your career, your job, spirituality. Now, this does not mean has to be organized religion. It means how do you view yourself in relation to the world, to humanity? Where do you fit in? Do you ever think about thoughts that are bigger than you? Do you serve others? And that's again, all these things are rooted in science. Science proves you have to serve others. You don't have to have a religion. You don't have to believe anything, but you have to care about something other than yourself. So when I say spirituality, I mean that as all-encompassing. How do you view yourself in this world, and are you serving others? Health. Holy cow, health is a big one. How do you feel stuck with your health? And if you don't have health, man, you really don't have anything, right? It's so important. Personal growth is another area. You might just be a curious person who wants to get more more knowledge or more skills if that's really important to you, but you're not doing it. You're serving others too much. Like a lot of these areas are so great, but you start to devote too much time to one of them, and then another category might be suffering. So think of these as like holistic happiness. All of these categories contribute and feed off each other to make you happier when they're all kind of in balance. So feeling stuck, it can happen in areas where you've started to give in and you kind of give up, and it's not sitting with your soul well. You're starting to notice that like, I shouldn't have given that up. Or in areas where at the time you took the easier route, but now the truth is kind of like slowly revealing itself to you, and you're like, oh dang, that shortcut was not worth it. And it's revealing itself to you now after the fact. So feeling stuck can feel like you're not really on top of the ball in your life, but rather you're behind the ball. You're like frantically chasing it after it down the street. Like life is chaotic, right? But when we feel stuck or just feel like I can never catch up, I'm never going to be on top of the ball, I just don't feel like I have any control in my life. That's how being stuck can feel for some people. And the truth is, gosh, I hate to deliver this bad news, but there are just no life hacks or shortcuts when trying to reach self-awareness. You just really have to sit with it and face it for a while. That's the only way to get through it and to feel unstuck. I know social media would love for you to believe like, oh, just buy this or take this and it's a life hack. No, you gotta sit with it. You gotta do the slow, steady work to really figure out who you are. And once you pinpoint what area of your life you do feel stuck in, again, you find the category and you zoom in a little further to check out my authenticity. Am I really being authentic with this? Do I feel stuck because I'm doing something because I feel like I should? Oh no, I should do this. Everyone else is doing it. I guess I'll do it. Or am I doing it to impress others? Or does your life feel like it's yours? That's like the deeper dive you have to do once you start asking yourself these questions. Doesn't mean that you're gonna keep asking it until you find like, okay, yes, this is not my life. Not everyone's gonna have that feeling. Just don't force the answers. Just really be authentic with your questioning. And this is so important to let you guys know. There's so many books and research out there that has asked people who are literally on their deathbeds, what are your biggest regrets from life? And honestly, it's always that they regret not being themselves or not taking more risks as themselves. So this idea of being authentic, I can't tell you how important it is. My goal for you, for me, for everyone in Dayton, Ohio, all across the world is just to look back and see a life that we can be proud of with very few regrets. And that starts with truly knowing ourselves, doing the work to see who's in there, who's driving the bus, checking in. Even though I know, guys, it feels goofy as heck to be like, oh, who's in there? What am I thinking? I'm telling you, it's super important. And you can't skip this step. You can't just dig into the bigger things without knowing who you are. We need to be aware also of not only where we feel stuck, but also what our thoughts are. What we think, man, that's huge. What you think is what you start to believe, and it's what you start to act on. And then there's this thing called confirmation bias. If you think, like, for example, I'm really bad at math, which I am, the worst. This is a side story, but I once was failing math in high school. I had a total F. I just couldn't get it. It was geometry. To this day, I still don't get geometry. But my teacher got me a tutor, which was his wife. And she tutored me, and the next class I got a D- on my test. And I was like, yes, thank you, God. He was like, whoa, I thought you had a tutor. I was like, I do. I got a D-. Progress. But I digress. Squirrel. If you think that you're bad in math, you're going to have confirmation bias. You're going to look for ways in the world that prove that you're right. You're like, yep, I knew it. I'm bad at math. See? And that's how our thoughts can be. It can be really good. Like if you're like, oh, I'm awesome at whatever, you're going to really reinforce ways to remind yourself that you're good at that. The same can be true for the negative. I'm bad at this. Yep, that proves my point. I suck at relationships. Yep, that one stunk too. So we got to be really careful about what we're thinking. And sometimes we don't know what we're thinking because we get swept away by it, right? We don't think about what we're thinking. It's a little bit tricky to peel back those layers, step off the conveyor belt, take off the backpack, and examine, what am I thinking? Who's driving this bus? And are they getting carried away? And should I really think twice? And these are called limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome, when you start to be like, I can't do it. I'm dreaming too big. I can't do these things. I can't do it. So those thoughts really kind of compile and stop you from reaching your goals. And your goals don't have to be big. I always remind people, I'm a very simple person. I like to just hang out on the back porch and enjoy nature. I am never going to be a CEO of a company. I'm never going to be bigger than life. I'm not chasing after millions of dollars or being an influencer. I don't even like social media. I just have little goals each day, and that's great. The goal of life coaching is to really tap into who you are and get what you want out of this life. If you want to be remembered for how funny you were or how you connected with people, that's important. That's your goal. Doesn't have to be, goals don't have to be just for people who want to succeed and do this and yeah, let's do this. Nope. It's for the everyday average person who wants whatever they want from life. Another thing to think about when we're being self-aware is, how's your confidence doing? Do you have a lack of confidence? Or do you look outward for validation? Does your confidence hinge on what people say about you? Or do you have what I like to call quiet confidence? Do you just do your thing and quietly do it without caring if anyone notices? Is your happiness inner? Do I care about what I'm doing? Do I really feel like I'm tapping into my purpose? That's where your inner confidence should really glow. But if you're relying on others to approve of you, that's going to be hard. The person who's driving the bus is a person who's frantically looking for approval. Something to think about, right? And being self-aware means being able to point out your imperfections and kind of balancing that with curiosity to change, right? Okay, I know who I am, but I really want to be better. So it's this balancing act and making peace with it, but also listening, I'm hungry for a little bit more. It's taking time to know who you are and giving yourself grace to accept the whole package, but you're also nudging yourself to grow. It's also not being I know who's in there and I don't like it. It's neither extreme. It's neither oh, I love who I am. I'm perfect. I love everything about me. But it's also not, I don't know who that woman is. I love everything about me. It's not her. We don't like her. But it's also not getting swallowed up by, I hate that about myself. Dang it, I'm so self-conscious. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about this balancing act of saying, I kind of understand who I am, but I know that I want to do more. Something I've noticed with me, with everyone in the world, when you become self-aware, gosh, it's so easy to just point the finger and blame. To think of your problems and to blame it on the world or other people. I just can't help it. It's not my fault. Here's some examples of that I've heard. I can't get ahead because I have no money. I want a relationship, but I can't find anyone who's good enough. I want to be healthier, but I have no time. Right? All those things can be true. Parts of them can be true. We don't have control over everything, but being self-aware will let you feel more empowered and in control because you can see what you can do to navigate life. It's not a fruity little, magic wand. It's nothing woo-woo like that. Like I said, it's not woo-woo. It is science and slow, steady practice. What can I do to navigate my life better today instead of getting swept up by it? That's the name of the game. And here is an important disclaimer to know about self-awareness. When you have deep trauma, like abuse, addiction, or violence, it's just so much harder to just simply sit and face those things. This takes therapy to process. I'm definitely 100% not a therapist. I'm a life coach. So definitely it takes time to process those. And that's the precursor to all this. If you have experienced that, that's worthy of some professional help from a psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist. Definitely the first step before becoming self-aware. Another common theme in clients is they've experienced a loss or grief. And grief doesn't have to mean just a death. It can mean a divorce, a breakup, or like a loss of a job or a dream that you had your heart set on for so long and it just disappeared. So grief and loss are really common, and it might be exactly what you find inside of you that's just so huge and kind of consuming your day, and that is the thing that's driving the bus. It doesn't mean you have to hurry up and get over it, but you do have to process it. It's just such a deep wound. It takes more time to face and understand how it's affecting us. And it's going to happen to all of us, right? We're all going to lose something. We're going to experience death. We're going to experience the loss of not just people and pets, but dreams and goals and visions and how we thought our lives might look. They just don't ever look the same way that we thought they would. And we can't control this loss. We can't control losing people or things or dreams. It's just inevitable. But what we can control is how we sit with it and face the pain and understand. That's the key word here. Understand how it's shaping us. Like, okay, yes, that's my grief. That's my grief. I got to process that. I got to make sure that's the thing that's not always driving the bus, because life will not be as happy as it can be. And again, happiness is not delusional. It's not Pollyanna. Yay, I'm happy. I'm never going to be sad. Nope. It's about, yeah, I'm sad. Today's really hard. I hope tomorrow's better. Day by day. So again, self-awareness is not pretending everything is okay. It's honoring the garbage you've been through without allowing it to have the last word. Okay? That's a lot of stuff thrown at you about self-awareness. A recap is you're just going to think about, how are you stuck? Where are you stuck? What category? What makes you feel off? How do you feel self-conscious? Who's gotten in your head? What have you been telling yourself? What dreams do you have? Self-awareness, just hanging out with the person who's driving the bus, your inner child, and really getting curious about who's in there. And I keep saying woo-woo. I'm going to say it again, and not in a woo-woo way. If you like the woo-woo, girl, go on. Light up your incense, get the prayer bells, the prayer chimes, like do it all. Do whatever you want. But make it your own. If you are a person who, like, I am never going to tell anyone I'm doing this, don't tell anyone you're doing it. Just do it at home, whatever is comfortable for you. Like, turn on some David Bowie music. Like, he's my favorite. Why not? Turn it on and do the work. Make it your own. So now we get to the part where I stop throwing stuff at you and you start doing a little thinking and some homework. Get your homework here. So do this work for the next week. It's not a one and done thing. Oh, I'm self-aware. I sat for 15 minutes. Nope. You got to think about this for the next week. If you're working to become self-aware, you're going to see more answers come to you each day. It's like the confirmation bias I told you about. If you're thinking something, if you're looking for it, it's going to come to you. So it's like you're opening the door in your brain. And I swear to you, for the next week, I know you're going to see more things. You're going to be like, oh, I noticed that I do that a lot. I noticed that I keep thinking about this memory of this or that. You know that it's important to you now because you've allowed yourself time to open the door and let it in. And I do encourage you, after I ask you these questions, to write down your answers. And I know just the word journal alone will send people for the hills running. Oh God, journal. I'm not going to journal. Jot them down anywhere. Like I said, I'm a writer and I don't even like to journal. It doesn't feel comfortable to me. I still do it once in a while, but it's not natural for me. So do whatever feels comfortable. If you are at a coffee shop and you've got a napkin, like write on the napkin, write ideas as they come to you. I'm never going to audit your work and say, what did you write about? Is this a polished essay with a conclusion and an introduction? No, I will never do that. And no one will ever see what you've written. This is just for you and whoever's driving your bus. So write these answers down. Don't overthink. Again, I know these answers are right on the surface of your skin. If I say, how do you feel off? You know what it is. You know, it's already there. Just pay close attention to answers this week as they come to you. Okay, here's your questions. Get ready. We've already asked this one, but it's worth repeating. In what ways do you feel stuck or off? And again, they're right there on the surface. They can be small things, or they can be really big, life-shattering things. Big or small, how do you feel off? How does your life feel like it's not your own? And having the self-awareness around that will give you the power to navigate your emotions and well-being in a way that's going to bring you some more peace. So really think about, where am I stuck? How do I feel off? A few more questions for you. What are the voices of self-doubt in your mind? What are you telling yourself that you're not good at? Or fear, what are you afraid of? What would you like to accomplish but keep ignoring? What would you change about your life if you could? What assumptions have people made about you and that you believe? What event in your past still has its grips on you that is affecting your current life? Now, you might not realize that an event in the past still has its grips on you. My example of my surgery when I was a kid, kind of don't think about it until something happens. Like, oh gosh, that still makes me really sad and emotional. So just sit there and think, like, what past event do I happen to think about pretty often? And then what did you love as a kid that you've forgotten about? And now, again, I'm going to ask you to sit in silence for 15 minutes. Sorry, I know. It's very uncomfortable, but I promise if you do the work, you're really going to see some good results. So listen and be aware for the next week as answers reveal themselves to you. These are examples of questions I would ask you if we were working together as a life coach and a client. I would ask you questions like this, and I would really give you my feedback and my insights. I would never tell you, you have to do this and you have to do that. I would say, hey, like, as you're speaking, I really get a sense that you might feel this. Is that true? And together we would unpack it and we would create a roadmap together of like, okay, we've nailed this. Ooh, I feel good. I figured out this. Now what's next? So that's how life coaching works. You unpack these things, you examine them, you speak them out loud. Just the idea of speaking things to each other, having that outward voice of like, hey, I've thought these things, but now that I've said it, I'm hearing myself saying it, and I feel like I can really take the next step. So that's what life coaching does. If you want to get personalized life coaching with me to create more self-awareness in your life, and you really want to become the person you want to be, you can learn more about Rebecca Rine Life Coaching. My website is RebeccaRine.com. It's RebeccaRine.com. I also have a book there that I wrote. It's before I became a life coach. It was just all about balancing the joys and the hardships of life, and really just finding contentment no matter where you are. I'll be back next week with the next step to my 8-part series to help you get unstuck and stop living on autopilot. Isn't that a great goal to have? The next step is uncovering what's important to you in life, because it can be easy to forget that once we get buried in adulting and being busy, man, we just forget what the heck we even want, what we want to be prioritizing. So that's our next step. This week, self-awareness. Look for it, think about it, spend the whole week in it, and then next week we're going to take the next step into thinking, what's important to me? What do I want? Thanks so much for joining me today. Remember to leave your brain's door open this week. Let stuff fly in. Be open to it. Don't feel goofy. I gotcha. No one's watching. Transform today and do it again tomorrow. Do the work instead of just talking about doing the work. You're awesome, and I see you.